pleasure is entirely mine. I cannot tell you how happy I am with the type of people you are. In Ladakh, I keep trying to make our young people think beyond government jobs. Most of them are after some civil services or some exams. And I keep saying, do what you like. Start your own entrepreneurships. And I'm so happy, and that was one of my attractions coming to this event, to be among people who have followed their own dreams and doing things that they care about and gives them joy, rather than going for the routine government things. And I got in big trouble once for saying that in government, I said exactly this in a conference and I got in huge trouble. Maybe I'll share later. I said, in government, whether it is the chief secretary or the chaprasi, all live off on taxpayers' money that comes from people who generate wealth. It's better to be on this side. And yeah, it went It went to the extent that I was labeled as an anti-national with Chinese connections by those in the government. And not just in a speech, it was on paper, in quotes, 6 years of litigation. Oh, finally we won. That's the strength of democracy. And personally, I have been into entrepreneurship of all kinds, social entrepreneurship mostly now, but I started with business entrepreneurship also in a small way, and it was so successful as a 19-year-old that I lost all interest in the money part of business. You know, when you see it can be paid very quickly, very easily, there should be something beyond to change life. That's what pushed me towards what I'm doing now. I just account a little part of what kind of business entrepreneurship I was forced into. An adversity struck in my life, and that I'm most grateful to. Like I am, all the problems that I have faced, you know, they made me think beyond the routine, out of the box, and all the things that make you creative, make you come up with solutions, and you're grateful that it happened, and it happened so that these problems need to quit. So there are so many, but this one, I didn't know what I was going to study. Somehow in 11th grade, I got the chapter on lenses and mirrors, optics, caught my fancy. I got obsessed and went around asking, where do you get to learn more about these? And an uncle of mine said, you get this more of this in mechanical engineering. So I decided I was going to do mechanical engineering. I did my exams, got into what is now NIT Srinagar. And the first year was smooth, because all branches the students study together. And in the second year, you have to choose two branches. And of course, you can guess what my choice would be. And my father asked, so what are you choosing? I said, mechanical engineering. He said, no, there's no scope for mechanical engineering in a place like Ladakh. You should choose civil engineering. He said, can't even think of that. I came into mechanical engineering for my lenses and mirrors. And he found it ridiculous. Which I stopped this. Go for civil engineering. I said, no, mechanical. Civil, mechanical, and it became a big dispute. At the end of which he said, if you do that, you'll do it at your own expense. Don't expect anything from me. Something inside me said, thank you. Got up and left the house. So I walked out of my father, who was quite well off, and outside on the stairs, I was thinking, now what? And that started a journey that I'm so grateful normally a test of your determination. If you're determined, make up. They want your happiness. So I went out and then thought, what do I do? I don't have strength to work like a coolie, but then I thought science and maths is what I like, and I can teach students in Ladakh who had such problems in their schooling with exploitative tuition systems and all such things. So I decided to go back to Ladakh in my first year of engineering, skipping an industrial national tour. And that was my first business entrepreneurship opportunity. Very foolhardy or risk-taking of me to go into Ladakh and go to one of the big guest houses and say, can I rent your guest house for 3 months? And he said, okay, it's winter and we don't have business. And I said, okay, went to a stenographer and said, can I hire you for 2 months? Went to some machine vendors and got printing machine. All this with not enough money for the next lunch in my pocket. Literally, I had to make a list of my relatives to go for lunches. It all came together. I put up posters for an innovative coaching center for 10th grade students. Had this stenographer make materials that were very simple and attractive for the students, and very soon it became so successful that we were running out of capacity. And then I had to innovate new ways of peer teaching systems where I would retrain 5 best students to become teachers for the 5 weakest students and put them together at the end of the class to teach one another. The weak one definitely benefited, but the most benefited was the strong one who became a star from a good student. So, like that, all kinds of such things. And at the end of 2 months, I had enough money to pay for all the 4 years of engineering in just 2 months. I was only expecting to do that each year for each year's expenses, but the first year itself, 2 months was enough, which would be by today's standards maybe 5 or 6 lakhs or something like that. Enough for the whole 4 years. And that event of that winter changed my life in 2 ways. One was so much money so quickly that I thought money can be made anytime you want. More interesting things are there. And secondly, I came face to face with the system of education, the reality or the falsehood of it. How perfectly bright students were being made to feel like failures. They were failing by the hundreds because of the system, not because of themselves. So I saw all the problems I'll share later and diagnosed why this was happening. In those days, 95% of the students were failing in Ladakh, and people were blaming the students. And some teachers who had come from like Jammu or Kashmir to teach would devise these pseudo-scientific reasons for why Ladakhi students fail in maths. Things like, oh, there is little oxygen in the air. You can guess who suffered from lack of oxygen. Well, so going into more of that, the journey into education and entrepreneurship and innovation and making failures fly, I'll just share a few slides to introduce you what place we are talking about. So, Ladakh is this end of the world for many. Top north of our country, it's flanked by Tibet in China on the east and Pakistan on the west, and Central Asian republics like Tajikistan are not far on the north. Cold Himalayan mountain desert, average think in these harsh climate, nature, how do people survive? Well, they have not only survived, they have thrived for centuries. They have adapted to the region, and a vibrant culture, civilization has thrived. For example, winters, you find cold difficult, but no, people have been creative. Winter is full of festivities, and people count winters from one festival to other, very colorful. So, like that, all kinds of creative ways. We are a very microscopic minority that way in this huge country, which is tropical, hot, and therefore, apart from linguistic and ethnic, we are also climatic minority, and therefore technological minority. What works here doesn't work there. And in education, it is most serious because in education, in schools, most of the things don't even work here. So how do you see that? You take something blanket from like Delhi and Mumbai to 11,000 feet, and of course it doesn't make much sense. I'll come to that also. So when I finished my engineering in the late 80s, this was the state. 95% of the students were failing every time, consistently, and they were being blamed also for that. I wanted to question this. I wanted to make people see that when 95% of the products are failing, whether in one of your industries or in schools, it's not the products you blame, it's the system you inspect and correct. So that's how the situation was, and therefore we started questioning it and diagnosing the root cause. That's what I consider important. In this whole talk, I think you find parallels of businesses and leadership throughout the story without listing them as this and that. I hope you can just find. So one of the important things I consider is going into the roots of the problem rather than just bandage treatment of symptoms of the problem. So we tried, some of us who had just finished our own university, after that first year, I somehow finished my engineering because it has always been my first love. But I was drawn more by this loud cry in education, perfectly brilliant students being made to feel like failures. So I chose to go for this, but engineering always remained in my heart, and you'll see later that I quite nicely used it for solving various problems. So rather than blaming people, we started questioning and diagnosing using cause and effect. There are effects because there are causes. Let's find the causes and do the root and treat those rather than treat symptoms or blame products. So we very soon saw that behind this failure there are reasons, like Ladakhi students of 5 or 6 who never spoke any other language, or their parents, than Ladakhi, were made to suddenly study everything in Urdu because it was the state language. And Urdu is fine, children are good at languages, but after 6 or 7 years of Urdu for all the sciences and maths, they were made to forget all Ladakhi words that they had become so good at with their parents, with their grandparents. They were all made to relearn everything in Urdu. But after 8 years, what you find is one fine morning, it's now English. All the Urdu is gone. So you were slapped for using Ladakhi words once, and now you're slapped for using Urdu again. And then we are surprised that 95% fail. That's what I find ironically very funny, that it's so obvious. So irrelevant curriculum. I was training teachers and I would visit many schools, and once I find in a classroom like this, students all memorizing, we grow rice with monsoon rain, we grow rice with monsoon rain at 11,000 feet. Children are memorizing, we grow rice with monsoon rain. And I was like, talk to the teacher, what are they saying? This is what the book boxes, she said. And they're memorizing for the examination that's coming. And I said, what if one idiot among your students writes, we grow barley with glacial melt water? What would you do? She said, you fail. Why? Because the book says we grow rice with monsoon rain. People have never seen rice growing. People have never seen monsoon rain, and yet you have to write that lie to pass this exam. You can see where the problem lies with the kid or the system. So that kind of irrelevance of looking at these causes and effect becomes simpler to understand. You're surprised at how those 5% marks. So teachers come out of a school like this and become teachers. At 10th grade, without any training, are made to teach, which is worse than no training. Yes. Because it's worse than no training because they have seen their teachers. And that's what they carry on, the tradition. So teachers can't be blamed because they're just sent to teach. You don't send anybody to become a doctor after 10th grade from a poor school to, with your scissors, I'm going to operate your mother. You don't do that. So how can you let some young people operate on the minds of little children? It's not visible as gory, bloody as a doctor, a teenager going with scissors and operating, but that's what you're doing to minds of little children if you mess up the way they should be brought up, learning concepts. And no scope for community involvement. In a democracy, people are the most important component, and yet these schools didn't care at all about people. People were kept outside the boundary. This is school, this is government school, you have no business. That's not how things work, as I'll show you later. People should be the driving force, especially in a democracy. In a benevolent dictatorship, it could be a great king who infuses a good education system. But in a democracy, unless people become owners of the system will not work. And just because of lack of people's ownership, then you have all kinds of mismanagement and accountability. And of course, with this system at the root, failure is not proper, right? So we took our time to go to the roots of why this is happening, rather than start with blaming or some patchy solution of the syndromes or symptoms. And to diagnose these causes, we launched a movement called Operation New Hope with the stakeholders that should be in the scene, not just a few of us or an NGO or an organization, but with all the actors. You have to change the system. These were government schools. Huh? We saw that initially we were not wise enough to see all this. We came back from our universities, the few of us that started this movement, and started helping the 10th grade students pass better. But after 1 or 2 years, we realized that if you keep repairing broken products, you could be doing that for 50 years, and the system would still be producing broken products for you to repair. That's not a solution. You have to do something so that the problem doesn't arise in the first place, and you are not required. So then on, we said our aim as this organization called SECMOD, Students' Educational and Cultural Movement of Ladakh, that's what I helped start. Our aim, our ultimate goal should be that we are not needed. We are, the need is eliminated. That should be our goal. One day, people shouldn't even see why such programs are needed, because the system itself works so well that people repairing it or helping broken products are not needed. So therefore, we saw that we shouldn't be, just teaching and coaching failing students or at the 10th grade level, we should go to the roots, and the roots that produces these broken products is the village schools. Therefore, change the village schools and change them with the stakeholders, like the community that should own the schools, the people in the villages, and the state, the government that are supposed to run the system, and yes, civil society organizations like ourselves should be the bridge, the facilitator of this change. So we launched this triangular collaboration of people, government, and civil society organizations to help the flower bloom. And a triangle is the strongest structure in nature, so something that would support the child. And we didn't want to go big, wanted to test the concept and show the government that it works. In any case, we were like 20, 21-year-olds. If you go to the government with some papers saying we are going to change the system, of course they'll laugh and push you out. So we didn't want to go to the government straight. In any case, Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir government has a very strange relationship where they see Ladakh as this anti-state or somewhat subversive. We want to go separate from the state, etc. Therefore, we thought we should not go with proposals and papers to the government. First, start and make it work, and then upscale it. So therefore, we took somehow one school in a village in 91 and diagnosed all those root causes that you saw. We changed the language medium of instruction problem. We made teaching materials, textbooks, trained all the teachers, and organized the people into a very strong board or governing committee, and things started changing. School started working better, students started understanding better, teachers were happier because things were simpler now. At that stage, when it was working, then we invited other villages to join this movement, and 30 more schools joined with the people behind them. It was mandatory that the people sponsor the training of the teachers, each village family, so that they get involved completely. Their stakes are there, they own the thing. And once 30 villagers were involved, that's when we went to the government to say, this is what we did, this is working, teachers are happy, students are happy. Of course, they couldn't say, no, this is not good, once everything was working. So instead of saying no, as they would normally have, they became our partners. And we became a bigger project with textbooks that we designed, changed the whole textbooks to suit a context like Ladakh in the mountains. And even today, the government publishes those textbooks, and we produce it. They take the cost of printing and so on. And with these first school and the 30 schools, we wanted to take the message to the people to make them see that it is possible to change the system. It is not that Ladakhi people are like a mediocre race or something, which is what they had come to believe, that because of oxygen and so on, we can't ever learn. And in that awareness, spreading that awareness and belief that it can be done, we synergized and teamed up with other actors. For example, students were our ants army to take the message to all the villages in Ladakh. And mind you, they're very remote. Some of them you have to walk 7 days to reach. There is no village where we didn't take the message through our students' brigade. So they would take the message that things can change. For example, showing people that they can change. And here I say that more than experts who have big ideas and can do wonderful things, students can sometimes play a big role. So we have to learn to team up with other actors and not take it as our own onus to do it. And we do lots of camps for young people, their own growth, and then they play a role in spreading awareness, whether it is about educational awareness or health awareness. And I say that we have to learn to synergize with other actors so that we team up and get a bigger impact. And I like this doha in Hindi. Don't be surprised I speak Hindi now. Often ask me, you speak good Hindi? Yes, I'm Indian. This is perhaps the only country where people are surprised when a citizen speaks the national language. This doha, रहीम का ये दोहा मुझे बहुत पसंद है जहाँ पे स्टूडेंट्स अपना बहुत बड़ा रोल निभाते हैं. उन्होंने कहा है, रहीमन देख बड़ेन को लघु न दीजे डाल, जहाँ काम आए सुई का करे तलवार. So we look for, doctors for help, experts for education. We overlook these ants who could do much more than a doctor can do. Doctor can cure. These little young people can prevent the need for a cure by making Jahan kaam aaye sui talwar kya karega. That's, I draw these inspirations from poetry in different languages, and I have a hobby for learning them. So, yeah. Together with them, we took it out to the people in the villages, and you will see why people are important. We went to every village. It's not really the way most of the time. You go to the minister with a big gift or something pleasing to them and get some changes in the policy, or the secretary. But that's a shortcut. We don't believe in shortcut. In a democracy, people are what decides. Bureaucrats, ministers may decide, but finally they have to yield to what people's priorities are. I'll show this graphic that we developed for making it understood by the people themselves. It was developed for training of village leaders. This is adaptation of a traditional Ladakhi Buddhist Tanka painting explaining the cycle of life, existence. But here it is about the cycle of educational failure. So in this, I'll just share with you briefly. In this cycle, the vicious cycle, there is a virtuous also. You see the student fail, grind, depicting the failure, 95% failure. Most of the times, you blame the student, first of all, for lack of oxygen and not doing well. Or you blame the teacher for being this lousy, lazy beings and so on, shirking duty, or you blame the system, the bureaucracy, the politicians and so on. But people do not introspect, self-reflect. They don't see that what are they doing. Most of the times in villages and on bigger issues nationally, we are the people. So here in this you see that people are running after doles of subsidies and subsidized ration and bijli and things, and nobody is talking about education. So when people are not talking about education, this politician is not going to talk about education on his own because he wants tali and not gali. Yeah? If the people ask for this and he talks about education, no matter how enlightened he is, he'll get gali and not tali, and that's not what he wants. So they don't talk about education, they talk about what they want. And therefore, bureaucrats who do this will have a very important place, and those who are dealing with education are like left out. They're not important. And of course, teachers are down and depressed, and this chakra goes on. So therefore, rather than blaming the student or the teacher or the bureaucrat, we have to change the priorities of the people, the programming of the people, if you want lasting change. Lasting is important here. If not, you can go to the bureaucrat or the politician and make a one-off policy passed and so on. So therefore, what we said was that we have to go the longer way, not shortcut, and change the priorities of the people in a democracy. So this is Operation New Hope, the reforms of schools and so on. It has to be the people who ask for this rather than those. And then politicians will also speak that language because they know what gives them value. Now, everywhere they go, it's about education. So they, even if they are enlightened or not, they will do that. That's when bureaucrats who deal with this will come in action. Teachers who do will get respected and recognized. Those who don't will be held accountable, and the system will work and it will get better and better. So this is the longer, again going into the root cause. What works in a context? In democracy, this is how it works. In a monarchy, pleasing the king may work, but here, if you please a bureaucrat or a politician, the next one may not do the same. The next one may actually wipe everything out if it's from the opposition. But going by this, we have seen that politicians may hate us or like us, but they cannot change the policy. For all these years, they have, therefore, since Ladakh got its Hill Council status, which is like becoming a state within a state, ever since then, the subsequent successive governments have declared education as the top priority. It might be the only elected government that has done education as the top priority. Yeah? And they adopted Operation New Hope as their policy. Not because they were specially enlightened, but because that's what the people's mood was, and they could perceive that. And because of this chakra of Operation New Hope, so because of, I am skipping many things, like we designed textbooks, trained every teacher, got all the village leaders to understand, train, and act for improving schools, and results start improving, proving that there is enough.
Oxygen level change.
So now we were concerned about those who still fail. We shouldn't overlook them. Nobody should fail, and nobody is a failure. It's just that system declares some as failures and makes them feel like failures. So again, normally you say those who fail 10th grade. If there is a center or a school, normally I've seen that you want them to become masons or carpenters, things like that, tailors. There's nothing wrong in it. Why not? But not because you failed. You have taught and you may still become a mason. That's how it should be. You have taught and you still become a carpenter because you love that. But you should not be forcing people who have been so-called failed to become this and not that. So therefore, our approach was that they are not failed. They can do all the things that anybody else can do, and therefore should be given opportunity. So after 10 years, we handed over the project to the government, because it is the government system. You have to have an exit strategy. So we handed over, and we parallelly started and then continued to focus on students who still fail in the system. No one should be left behind. Yeah? They should meet their dream. And failure and success in this system has very thin, narrow border. Anyway, who is a failure, who is successful, who passes? It can depend on so many things, from mood of the examiner to, if you are very honest, you may fail because you didn't cheat. And others who do any what may succeed, and so on. So at that, I'll just share some of these stars in Ladakh who are respected as achievers. I'll introduce 2 or 3 of them. This is Rigzin. He became a journalist, studied journalism, and became Ladakh's Minister of Education for the Hill Council government at 27. This is Tanzin Dorje. He's a celebrated filmmaker. He's been winning awards across India, Canada, France, and just this winter he launched a beautiful film about his shepherd sister on European version of National Geography, which is called ASCENT. So, very well respected in his field. Tinless, she is an entrepreneur, a celebrated entrepreneur who launched her all-women's travel company, where your cooks, your guides, your porters, and the clients are all women. So she's been written about in many journals internationally, and one of them declared her the person of the year. Now, can you guess what would be common? They not only failed, but failed miserably. So these stars were dusted off until they came in contact with the school that we set up for discovering those failures and relaunching them again. And unfortunately, we have a system where they have failed 5 times, but our system is making like people who got 98% marks, you have no place for admissions in Delhi University. 100% is what is demanded. A system that makes 98%ers feel like failures and toppers feel like failures. I ask, if failures can do what toppers dream of, then where is the system going? So this is the school we set up, especially for those who were declared failures year after year. At some point, in 94, we set this up. Here, the admission criteria, yes, is very different. It is that you have failed the system. Those who have passed may be considered on the waiting list, but it's very different in many ways, both educationally, environmentally. This is a campus that runs completely on solar power, almost completely. In the last stages that appear trying.
What does RECOIL mean?
Students' Educational and Cultural Movement of the organization. So it's been started in '94 for this site that is declared failures and so on. And at this school, which is by the Indus River, you can see, and here you get a picture of how Ladakh looks like in the rain shadow of the Himalayas. You can see that nature has left us high and dry. Yeah. So the students here are taught in ways that they learn. If they don't learn the way we teach, then we better teach them the way they learn. And that's like hands-on, practical, concrete, real, rather than abstract pages of books you learn in real world. So to facilitate that, we designed the campus so that they run the system and learn. Their curriculum is running the whole system, and physics and maths become a part of that. But all the life skills that you require to manage, to run things, they're due by being at this campus. So this campus is run like a little country, which has a little government that changes every 2 months, and they elect a student leader who runs the whole system. Adults have very little role. It's the students by turn on election, and they give portfolios to all the students. They have responsibilities to take care of different things. And it has its own little government. This campus has its own little media. It has a Campus Times newspaper, a campus radio, and even campus standard time. A different time zone from the Indian Standard Time. 1 hour ahead of the standard time. And there is a reason, we're not secessionists. The reason is that it is the easiest way to make teenagers go to bed early and get up with sunrise. Apart from knowing that time zones can be different, they go to bed at 11, or they go to bed at 10 thinking it is 11, and get up at 7 or or 6, thinking it is 7. Yeah. But this is an interesting thing also. We use lots of solar energy devices at the campus, all kinds of contraptions and photovoltaic panels and batteries and so on. My favorite device is this time zone, because the best solar lighting that you can think of is not through photovoltaic panels and LEDs and batteries. It's what happens at 5:30 in the morning outside your window. Right? That's the best solar lighting with sunrise. But unfortunately, most of our civilization in the 21st century sleeps through that solar lighting, and then we go through panels and LEDs to keep it lit up at 12 in the night. I was doing a rough calculation, I don't remember now, if the whole world adapts their lives a little bit to respect nature and went to bed not too long after dark and got up with the sunrise, how many nuclear power plants would be shut down? Just a little adaptation. Renowned ecologists may say all these things, but then lifestyle is what matters. So, changing life a little bit to flow with nature can go a long way. The 7 billion people do that. Anyway, so students take charge of real life responsibilities. They take charge of all the cows that give all the milk. They take charge of the solar cookers, the greenhouse, vegetables that feed the kitchen, solar power plants. They design, they set up, they maintain, and they learn by doing all that. This is their curriculum. More complex subjects in science, for example, germ theory, would be learned by applying it to food processing, preservation. So students would, in summer, when the apricots are ripe, they go for a big jam festival where they make hundreds of bottles of jam, and half of them they're supposed to keep for the winter, for their own consumption. The other half they have to sell. And with the money, they go for a big tour to a neighboring state. So, for selling it, they have to design a strategy, advertisements, marketing in the bazaar, and so on. That's their economics and commerce lessons. And when they go down to other states, going down the Himalayas, that's their lessons in geography. And coming back, they share their experience on campus times or campus radio, and that gives them communication skills. So life skills have to be learned living. Innovation is a part of life here, and most of our innovations go around the themes of earth, sun, fire, and ice. So earth is what the whole campus is made of, as you can see. All buildings are made with nothing but just earth that you find right under your feet, and taking inspiration for ancient forts that are standing for hundreds of years, built with nothing but earth, no cement. Then it means sun as the source of energy, which keeps all the buildings warm through the winter. Very simple systems, as you can see. There is a greenhouse that comes down outside the building, air heats up, becomes lighter, goes into the upper windows, delivers heat to the fat earth walls, becomes cooler, is pushed back into the greenhouse, and natural micro wind without any fans or ventilators or power, just simple nature. Yeah? And in the evening, students shut the windows and the heat is trapped, and that keeps you warm through the night into the morning. So these buildings never go below +14, between +14 and +20, which is at any time warmer than a place like Delhi. And I say I feel cold when I pass Delhi, coming from Ladakh. So simple systems like this. Yeah, so this is January and flowers bloom. Normally you hear nothing grows in Ladakh in winter. Similarly, solar energy is used for cooking, greenhouses that produce vegetables in winter. Photovoltaics also, but only for electricity, not for heat, water heating, and so on. Even the cows stay in solar heated sheds and therefore give much more milk because they don't have to use the food into heating their bodies to 36 degrees that the room does, and the food then gets converted into more milk. ice. Coming to ice, it can be a lot of fun and a lifesaver. Also, a few years ago, we devised a technique of making ice hockey rinks anywhere. Until then, it was restricted to ponds and reservoirs, which was okay for men, but girls found it very difficult to go to some place and so on. So we started promoting girls ice hockey at the campus by making this device of making ice hockey rinks. And this year, I'm happy to say, India's first national women's ice hockey team went to Taipei to play for India. Half the players were from this school. And ice can be a savior also. So 3 years ago, together with my students, we embarked on an interesting idea of freezing the water that goes waste in streams in winters to provide water in spring when farmers need the most, but there is no water because glacier melting is like erratic and people have lots of conflicts around water. It's a very simple system. I believe in systems that go beyond complex moving machineries. Very simple systems. As in the heating thing example you see here. This is the stream, and in winter, the stream keeps flowing, even in winter. Nobody needs water, therefore it keeps flowing. So all you do is just take away a pipe, downslope, and there is pressure due to gravity, because the water maintains its level. And because of that, a fountain spurts, and intermingling with minus 20 airs, it freezes into a cone. And a cone is a shape which contains a high volume for the surface area, and surface area is what the sun is able to, melt. Therefore, keeping the ice from melting into April, May, June, this shape, this geometric shape works like a wonder. So, we call it an ice stupa because it resembles a traditional stupas, and we wanted to connect technology and tradition, so they go together. And therefore, we did this ice stupa through, crowdfunding globally, because in ancient times stupas were anyway crowd funded, but now it is a new way. And with this stupa, we, together with the villagers, planted 5,000 trees. Maybe you can see here, on the inauguration day, 1,000 people came and planted 5,000 trees in some 1 or 2 hours, and then soon the trees are now green, 5,000 trees living because of this kind of system. Anyway, just to close it, we try to find solutions to Ladakh's problems, as you could find solutions to your problems here. Nobody does for Ladakh because it's difficult. But then how to get it to people? And our way has been, this overlaps with yours, our way has been to cater our solutions to the people through entrepreneurship. So we have now learned to come to understand that we launch entrepreneurs to take every service to the people. Thereby you give creative careers to young people, and people get what they demand. For example, those who like the food processing have started something called Ladakh Fine Foods. It's a big, fruit, apricot and so on. They have been supplying to the local market and even to Baba Ramdev's Patanjali thing. And some people have started travel companies. Others who saw, yachts are going out of fashion. They started adding value by making cheese for the tourism market. A company that produces green vegetables in the middle of winter when the prices are so high and supply is so short. Similarly, from the experience of solar heated earth buildings came out a company called Third Pole Enterprises. They build for people who need, like the Indian Army and local people. It's a very interesting earth building technique where you use just the earth under your feet and design it so that it's warm in winter. These are 18 to 20 degrees, they never go below, which is like internationally acceptable temperatures with no fossil fuel heating. Now we are working on making a prefab earth building company that will make buildings in a factory horizontally all the wall components, and then you assemble in a week or two. Very much in demand, not just among the people, but the Indian Army has a shortage of some 20,000 shelters, so we are trying to create these. And we are sharing the experience internationally through courses in collaboration with MIT, Masdar Institute, Cratère in France, and so on. People come from around the world for such short courses. The short courses have led us to think that we need longer courses. So now our work is on establishing a university on a desert where we are making the ice scuba to feed. So in some years to come, we use ice scuba system to green this 5 square kilometers. This is a visual painting, an impression of what it would be like, ice scubas all around and lakes, to make a university here, a university that is alternative in nature, hands-on like the school was, upscaling it to higher education, that researches its way through to make a township, a green solar township in Ladakh, and the university, which will have 1 hour to many years of education, will also have a entrepreneurs incubation center. And I would very much like, with all the rich experiences you have, to get engaged with Ladakhi youth who want to go away from government jobs into their own dreams. There should be a chain of mentorship, I feel, in this country, with people like the Mariwala family, mentoring you all, and you all could mentor younger ones in places like Ladakh, and those could go into colleges and schools and mentor younger kids, a whole chain that lifts the whole nation now. Thank you. Now get down. I'm sorry about the extra time. I've come a little long distance, so
I have one question. What is the inspiration of Mr. Raju Hirani for 3 Idiots?
I don't know. Let's talk about this work. Those are.
I have one more question to you.
Yeah, sorry.
I can see a lot of out-of-the-box things you have done all the while. How you have
This should be the normal. I want to ask, why is it not happening now?
I think the lack of oxygen.
Excessive oxygen. Excessive oxygen.
Yes, adversities compel you to think.
During this journey, after the college graduation, your other paths also need the funding. Initially, how did you manage the funding for your colleagues and for the expense of these other expenses that you did?
Very interesting, very interesting. I had 2 stints with business entrepreneurship. One was with financing my education. Then just as we finished my engineering, I was going to start this SECMOL, and again to help these 10th grade failures to pass better, or those who had failed to rehabilitate them with entrepreneurship. But we again had no money for the next meet. So we came up with an interesting idea now that you have asked. We saw that in Ladakh, lots of tourists were coming. On one hand, tourists got no information about what Ladakh is, so they behaved badly or damaged Ladakh. On the other hand, we didn't have money to start something good for the Ladakhi youth. So we said we'll start with an entrepreneurship of social kind. We didn't want to take money from donors. And this was important also to test our own determination. It's easy to do things with easy money, but can we do it ourselves? So putting these two together, we set up a very interesting cultural evening for tourists called Pride of Ladakh. A beautiful assembly of all the best artists, costumes and so on every evening, and we charge the tourists and use the opportunity to educate them. And but to start that also you needed capital. and we didn't have money for the next meal. So we did an interesting thing. We went to people who had spare money in the banks and we said, can you please invest your money, we'll give you returns. But nobody could trust 21, 22-year-olds. So we said, we came back and thought, and we went back again saying, we will give you an attractive interest rate of 50%. Yeah? And several of them came to us, and we used the money to launch this very grand cultural program in Ladakh in 88 July. And it was so successful that within 2-3 months we had returned all the loans and we had enough money to start bag making, candle making, chalk making, statue making with students who were failing in the system. So that's how we started. People came to us in those cultural shows saying, do you want support and we can fund you? And we said, no, thank you for now, but we want to test ourselves. So we started with that. Then there was a big agitation in Ladakh, this hill council business. Yeah, there was curfew and everything fell apart. That time we went to them and said, now you can fund because our own efforts are going haywire and it's a choice of closing or doing. So then when we wanted, we had enough funds to build this school. So right now, I should say, since you are entrepreneurs all, right now this school that you saw is fully self-reliant. Yeah? We don't take any grants from anywhere for running costs. But when it comes to like buildings and infrastructure, we take it. So it's a balance of getting support from others and being self-reliant for the core things. That's how it is about funding. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Sir, I would just like to say that I have been to this school of yours, and it is a most amazing place. The kitchen is unbelievable, where the solar panels heat the cooker at the bottom. The bathrooms are amazing. The bedrooms and the concept of study is, and the students take so much of pride in what they are doing that I don't think any of us city people can even realize what he has achieved. So it is a brilliant building.
I also have visited school, so if you are in Ladakh, do visit that school. Absolutely. I have questions. You mentioned the percentage in the metric raised from 5% to 72%. But in the end, were students still supposed to write "We grow rise with the rainwater"? Or did you also change the grading pattern every day? Because teaching them real education is one thing, but then getting the government to change what to ask them and how to grade them is a very different thing.
I took away lots of slides, but we changed all the textbooks of primary schools, and that's what I refer to. We got in partnership, synergized with them, produced all the textbooks, Ladakhi contextualized textbooks, but gave them the burden of printing and bearing the cost.
The exams are also grading on that.
Exams, no, not everything has changed, but the textbooks and the curriculum is much more local. But not just local, starting with local and then knowing known territory and then going to the unknown. That's how it should be. They need to know about the nation and the world also, but then it goes progressively from known to unknown, from home to the world.
I'd like to thank ASCENT for bringing us face to face with an innovator and a thought leader like you. It's really been fascinating. What I'd like to know is, apart from being able to follow you on social media like Facebook or Twitter, is there any technology or innovation cell that we could engage with to be able to draw some of what you're creating into our mainstream business?
Totally. That's what I raised this interesting, important issue. At this point now, I am into setting up a youth center in Ladakh, which will be, a mentoring, incubation hub for young people to do new things, different things, and therefore they need to learn from experiences of people like you, and maybe investments where you can grow together with some of them. I think people who have a bada bhai are lucky to have that bada bhai. But I think if we treat the nation as a family, then everyone should have a bada bhai, and you all should have a chota bhai to support. And that's how. So therefore, I don't know when, but I try to keep in touch and float this youth center. In the heart of Leh city, I discovered 2 years ago that my mother had a prime land. Yeah, and we got that, and I decided to donate it for this youth center purpose. So I have decided I have donated my part, you can donate your skills and expertise and your experience. So, very welcome. This you may hear, we are hoping to launch a crowdfunding at some point to set this youth center up in the heart of Leh, and not just crowdsource funds, but also expertise. So at that time, I think you will all be approached to, associate with such a youth center or incubation hub in a place like Ladakh, where you can share and learn reciprocally.
Are you present online?
Sorry?
Is there some way we can follow you on Facebook or Twitter? Or
Yeah, Facebook you can follow. Twitter I'm not active because
but what is the
internet is very poor.
so your personal name or
Email already?
Yeah, my name should be there.
on Facebook? Facebook is
You
your
look up
personal.
Sonam Wangchuk
Google
on
it.
Facebook.
Sir, have you considered, or if you already have something like, where the city kids can come and experience it, something like summer camps? So if they are there and exposed to your way of teaching for even 10 days or...
Yeah, we already do that to some extent. Now we are upgrading the capacity of the campus to handle more of them. We have lots of student exchanges with less with cities in India, more with internationally. Lots of young people's groups come there, spend a week or two, learn together and pay a lot. That's what makes us self-reliant.
That was the entrepreneur in them speaking.
And now we are about to launch ice hockey camps in Ladakh for Bombay, for Bangalore, and you will be paying your notes.
Sonam is with us. The questions can continue, can flow into the lunch. We have to kind of pause.